Welcome back, horror fans, cinephiles, and Giallo enthusiasts. This is Tanner Leeser, your host for The King in Giallo. This is episode 23 of the Forgotten Giallo film series, 1972 Part 2, and I've got 3 gialli here I'd like to highlight. As always, thanks in no small part to Troy Howarth's book on Giallo cinema, So Deadly, So Perverse, 50 Years of Italian Giallo Films, Volume 1, 1963 to 1973. Like this video and subscribe to The King in Giallo. Click the notification bell icon so YouTube doesn't hide my new content from you. And if you enjoy what I do here, please consider subscribing to my Patreon. I have loads of exclusive content that can only be found there, plus early access to all of my videos. On to the video. The first giallo for this episode we will discuss is The Two Faces of Fear, an Italian and Spanish co-production directed by Tullio De Micheli. The screenplay was penned by Pedro Mario Herrero and Mario Di Nardo, with a musical score composed by Franco Michalizzi. The cast is comprised of George Hilton as Dr. Roberto Carli, Fernando Rey as Inspector Nardi, Luciana Paluzzi as Elena Carli, Anita Strindberg as Dr. Paola Lombardi, Luis Davila as Dr. Michela Anzini, Eduardo Fajardo as Luisi, and Manuel Zarzo as Felix, Nardi's assistant. The plot is set at a prestigious private clinic where renowned heart surgeon Dr. Michela Anzini is found murdered just as he's considering leaving for a job abroad. Inspector Nardi is called in to investigate, uncovering a tangled web of personal and professional rivalries among the staff. Suspicion falls on several people, including Anzini's fiancée, Paola, the calculating clinic owner Elena Carli, and her ambitious husband, Dr. Roberto Carli. As secrets surface, ranging from infidelity to financial manipulation, the polished facade of the clinic begins to crack, revealing the brutal cost of ambition and deception. Upon its release, The Two Faces of Fear received mixed reviews. David McGillivray of the British Film Institute described the film as, quote, routine and underdeveloped, noting that aside from one well-executed sequence involving a woman fearing for her life on the operating table, the film lacked depth and suffered from expressionless dubbing. Director Tullio De Micheli, born in Buenos Aires in 1914, had a prolific career in European genre cinema, including crime dramas and westerns. His direction in The Two Faces of Fear reflects a blend of Italian giallo and Spanish thriller elements. Composer Franco Michalizzi, known for his work in Italian cinema, provided the film's score, contributing to its suspenseful atmosphere. The film was shot with a collaborative crew from both Italy and Spain, utilizing locations that enhanced its clinical and tense setting. Contemporary viewers have echoed similar sentiments, pointing out the film's lackluster pacing and underwhelming plot. Despite featuring a notable cast, including George Hilton and Anita Strindberg, critics felt the actors were not given substantial material to work with, resulting in performances that failed to elevate the film. However, some elements, such as Franco Michalizzi's musical score, have been praised for adding a layer of sophistication to the otherwise mediocre production. The film's attempt to blend medical drama with murder mystery was seen as ambitious, but ultimately fell short due to a lack of compelling narrative and character development. In summary, The Two Faces of Fear stands as a lesser-known entry in the giallo genre, notable primarily for its ensemble cast and musical composition, but hindered by a weak script and uninspired direction. While not a standout in the giallo genre, the film offers a glimpse into the collaborative European filmmaking of the early 1970s, merging medical intrigue with psychological suspense. The second giallo is Amok, an Italian production also called Hotbed of Sex, as well as Leather and Whips. The film is directed by Silvio Amadio, who also wrote it. Music is composed by Teo Usueli. The cast is made up of Farley Granger as Richard Stewart, Barbara Boucher as Greta Franklin, Rosalba Neri as Eleonora Stewart, Dino Mele as Sandro, Nino Segorini as Commissario Antonelli, Umberto Rajo as Giovanni, and Patrizia Viotti as Sally. The plot follows a young woman named Greta Franklin as she is hired by acclaimed novelist Richard Stewart to work as his new secretary at his remote Venetian estate. He's unaware, however, that Greta has an agenda of her own. Greta has come not for the job, but to find out what happened to her friend and lover, Sally, Richard's previous secretary, who vanished without explanation. Immersed in a world of decadent parties, casual drug use, and sexually charged games orchestrated by Richard and his seductive companion, Eleonora, Greta is pulled deeper into a dangerous web of perversion and manipulation. As secrets begin to unravel, she discovers that her predecessor's disappearance wasn't just suspicious, it was deadly. And now, Greta may be next. Amok is one of the defining entries in the sex-heavy, sleaze-tinged wing of the giallo genre. Released in 1972, it stands apart from the flood of Argento imitators of the period by leaning hard into eroticism, voyeurism, and gothic decadence. But what's surprising, and what has helped it endure, is how confidently it balances exploitation with genuine atmosphere and craft. This was director Silvio Amadio's third venture into giallo territory. He began with the pedestrian and conventional Assassination in Rome, 1965, a film more indebted to noir and krimi traditions and Euro spy forays than to the bloodier giallo wave that followed. His second effort, No Man's Island, 1969, also released under titles like The Island of Swedish Women and Twisted Girls, veered into pulpier, more exploitative waters, combining sun-soaked settings with sexual intrigue. But it's with Amok that Amadio fully commits to the genre's excesses. Here, he embraces the sex, sadism, and psychological decay at the heart of early 70s giallo, finally shedding the restraint of his earlier thrillers and delivering something that feels truly unshackled. The screenplay, also by Amadio, does offer a few twists and turns, but narrative isn't the primary concern. Instead, the focus is on setting a mood, sexual intrigue, opulent decadence, and psychological cat and mouse. Greta, ostensibly the normal viewpoint character, is surprisingly passive and often a step behind the more sinister players around her. In contrast, Richard Stewart, played by the aging but magnetic Farley Granger, is a charismatic, amoral figure cut from the Hitchcockian cloth. Stylish, witty, and morally bankrupt, Richard seems more amused than concerned by the unraveling plot, and his energy gives the film much of its momentum. He's joined by Eleonora, played by Rosalba Neri, whose presence radiates both seduction and danger. Visually, Amadio's work here is more dynamic than in his earlier thrillers. The film occasionally overindulges in zooms, common in European genre cinema at the time, but compensates with an eye for sensuality and mood. Most famously, the slow-motion lesbian encounter between Barbara Boucher and Neri remains one of the most iconic scenes in giallo erotica. Though such scenes were often shot for titillation, Amadio treats this one with a level of visual grace that makes it stand out, not leering, but hypnotic. The Venetian setting is also used more effectively here than in Assassination in Rome. Rather than treating the city as an exotic postcard, the film uses its canals and decaying grandeur as a contrast to the morally decayed characters. Amadio may never have achieved the stylistic precision of Argento or the operatic beauty of Bava, but Amok is easily his most cohesive and compelling work in the genre. He would revisit similar territory in Smile Before Death, 1972, but this remains the standout. As for the cast, Barbara Boucher plays the protagonist Greta with her usual icy allure, while Rosalba Neri dominates every scene she's in with a mix of elegance and menace. But the real revelation is Farley Granger. Once a rising star in Hollywood, best known for Hitchcock's Rope, 1948, and Strangers on a Train, 1951, Granger's career had waned by the 1970s. After working with directors like Nicholas Ray and Luchino Visconti, Granger turned to European cinema for more consistent work. Amok gave him one of his most substantial roles of the era. Here, he dubs his own English dialogue and leans into the role with sly charm and simmering malice. His wardrobe, dominated by ascots and silk shirts, only adds to the image of a man who knows he's debauched. and enjoys it. There's a melancholic thrill in seeing an actor of Granger's pedigree apply his gravitas to such sordid material. Much like Dennis Price in the films of Jess Franco, Granger's very presence elevates the material. He's both too good for the film and somehow perfect for it. The film's explicit content helped it gain notoriety during the VHS and Grindhouse era. In some markets, it was retitled Leather and Whips, a move clearly intended to amplify its sexploitation appeal. One infamous sequence even features a surreal pornographic take on Little Red Riding Hood, projected for Richard's guests like party entertainment. Just one of many moments where bourgeois depravity is played for both comedy and unease. Sadly, the most commonly available English-language versions of Amok have been heavily compromised. Pan and scan transfers, missing opening credits, and cropped compositions that butcher Amadio's widescreen framing. For years, this meant the film existed mostly as a cult footnote, appreciated only by diehards. Amok should be exploitation trash, and in another director's hands, it would be. But thanks to a strong cast, surprisingly tasteful direction, and that rare ability to straddle the line between sleaze and style, it remains one of the most perversely enjoyable entries in early 70s giallo. It seduces, repels, and charms all at once. The third giallo film we'll discuss is Eye in the Labyrinth, also called Blood, which is an Italian and West German co-production. The film is directed by Mario Caiano, who also co-wrote it along with Horst Heckler and Antonio Saguera. Music is composed by Roberto Nicolosi. The cast is comprised of Rosemary Dexter as Julie, Adolfo Celli as Frank, Alida Valli as Gerda, Horst Frank as Luca, Sybil Danning, billed as Sybil Dunning, as Tony, Michael Mayen as Louis, and Franco Russell as Eugene. The plot follows Julie as she is left reeling after the sudden disappearance of her lover, Luca. Her dreams are soon plagued by nightmarish visions of him being murdered. Driven by instinct and obsession, she sets out to uncover the truth, leading her to an enigmatic artist's retreat on an island owned by the elusive Gerda. There, among a circle of eccentric bohemians, Julie begins to untangle a twisted chain of lies, surreal encounters, and shifting realities. But the closer she gets to the truth, the more unstable her grasp on reality becomes. Eye in the Labyrinth opens with a quote from Jorge Luis Borges. "A labyrinth is built to bewilder the mind of man. Its architecture, however rich in symmetries it might be, is subordinate to this end." It's a fitting prelude to a film that forgoes conventional thriller structure in favor of dream logic, shifting identities, and narrative disorientation. While it lands comfortably in the giallo camp by its final act, much of the journey feels more like a psychological horror, informed as much by Last Year at Marienbad as by Blood and Blacklace. Rather than play the genre's typical rules, Mario Caiano, a seasoned director of pepla, westerns, and gothic horror, uses the giallo framework to explore something more internal and fractured. The film begins with what appears to be a violent murder, only to immediately cast it into doubt as a dream. From there, Caiano layers uncertainty upon uncertainty. Characters act irrationally, conversations go nowhere, and once Julia reaches the island, the behavior of its inhabitants, an assembly of wealthy misfits and artistic types, only intensifies the film's surreal atmosphere. What's most striking about Eye in the Labyrinth is its mood, hazy, sensual, and perpetually disorienting. Caiano's directorial style is more refined here than in many of his earlier works. Known for titles like Nightmare Castle, 1965, he brought a flair for gothic imagery and psychological distress, which finds fertile ground in this material. Caiano would only return to giallo once more with Calling All Cars, 1975, before moving into television and exploitation fare, including the infamous Nazi Love Camp 27, 1977. Despite the variety in his output, Eye in the Labyrinth is arguably his most cohesive and artistically ambitious film. At the center of the story is Rosemary Dexter, playing Julie with a soft vulnerability that makes her descent into paranoia feel almost tragically inevitable. Born in Quetta, Pakistan in 1944, Dexter built a steady career in European cinema throughout the 60s and early 70s. She had uncredited appearances in For a Few Dollars More, 1965, and a more prominent role in Jus Franco's Justine, 1969, though her career faded not long after Eye in the Labyrinth. She passed away in 2010. Backing her are two towering icons of European cinema. Alida Valli, icy and commanding as Gerda, brings decades of prestige to the role. Once promoted by David O. Selznick as the next Garbo, Valli had already worked with the likes of Alfred Hitchcock in The Paradine Case, 1947, Carol Reed in The Third Man, 1949, and Luchino Visconti in Senso, 1954. Her later career saw her take chilling turns in Lisa and the Devil, 1973, Suspiria, 1977, and Killer Nun, 1979. She remained active well into the 1990s and died in 2006. Opposite her is Adolfo Celli, best known internationally as the villainous Largo in Thunderball, 1965. Born in Sicily in 1922, Celli had a formidable career in Italian and international cinema, appearing in everything from Danger, Diabolic, 1968, to The Phantom of Liberty, 1974. Within the giallo genre, he turned up repeatedly in supporting roles. Who Saw Her Die, 1972, Naked Girl Killed in the Park, 1972, and others, often playing smooth operators with unclear loyalties. His presence here as Frank adds a measured ambiguity to a film already rich in deception. One of the more unexpected faces in the ensemble is Sybil Danning in one of her earliest screen roles. Though she has little dialogue, her appearance adds to the film's visual appeal. Danning would later become a cult icon in the 1980s thanks to films like Chained Heat, 1983, and Howling 2, 1985, where she often played statuesque warriors or seductive villains. Her giallo resume also includes The Red Queen Kills 7 Times, 1972. What Eye in the Labyrinth may lack in narrative clarity, it makes up for in atmosphere. The dreamlike pacing, lush cinematography, and ambiguous character motivations create a disorienting mood that's hard to shake. It's a film more interested in emotional dislocation than logical resolution, and in that way, it aligns with the quote that opens it. The Labyrinth isn't just a metaphor for plot, it's a mindset. Eye in the Labyrinth isn't built for viewers craving easy answers. It wanders, it misleads, and it slips in and out of dreams without warning. But for those willing to follow its spiraling path, it offers something rare. A giallo that values psychological disturbance over sensational shock. Strange, stylish, and quietly unsettling, it lingers. And those are the Forgotten Gialli for this episode. I hope you learned about something new here, and if you are interested in watching these movies, you can look them up online. If you do watch them or have already seen them, I invite you to leave your thoughts on them in the comments. Follow The King in Giallo on Instagram and give a like to The King in Giallo on Facebook. Subscribe here on YouTube if you aren't already, and join me every week for new Giallo film content. Join The King in Giallo on Patreon for exclusive content and early access to all of my videos. Thank you all very much for your continued support, and thank you especially to my patrons who support my work directly. This is Tanner Leeser for The King in Giallo, and if nothing else, I'll see you next time.
That bird's keeping quiet. I tried everything. Listen, I even massaged his prostate. Nothing.
Massage his prostate? Don't you know that's against the rules?